Hey, what's up guys, it's Jakeem the Nerdy Python coming at you with yet another movie review. In case you can't tell, I'm a little wet right now because it was raining and I just picked my mom up from work, but nevertheless, let's go ahead and get into this review. So X-Men Dark Phoenix, or just simply Dark Phoenix, has finally came out. It was one of my most anticipated films of the year and I finally got to see it. So of course, with this being the final film in the new X-Men franchise, I can't discuss it without talking about the other ones. Starting off with First Class, which I really loved. And then after that we had Days of Future Past, which I also love. The first few times that I've actually seen Apocalypse, I liked it, but as I sat down and watched it a couple more times, I started realizing what everybody's gripes with it was, which was that it was kind of weak and did feel like the stakes were just not as high as the first two films. So if I had to rank this film as compared to all the others, I would definitely put it above Apocalypse, but not above First Class and Days of Future Past. So as for the cast for this film, I think that everybody did a great job and there was really no bad acting, except I do believe that Sophie Turner as Jean Grey in this film felt a little bit two-dimensional, as she spent a great deal of the film just kind of in a very gloomy and depressing and in distressed state, having been overtaken by the Phoenix. With that being said, I felt like the rest of the cast did a great job, with Michael Fassbender, James McAvoy, and Ty Sheridan being at the forefront of that performance. James McAvoy returns yet again as Professor Xavier and puts on an outstanding performance that's just full of emotion and passion, really making you believe in his cause that he is the good guy saving all these kids and helping Jean suppress her darker tendencies. Michael Fassbender brings it yet again with the energy and passion as Magneto, and he's really developed very well as the main anti-hero of this new series. He's even settled down into a peaceful life and started his own place of refuge for the mutants. I think that Ty Sheridan as Cyclops also stood out in this film, and he's sort of really matured well into the character now that he and Jean are together, and he's taken on the role as her protective boyfriend that stands by her through thick and thin, and even become very leader-like with his own ideals that he really sticks to. The X-Men action was also very entertaining here, as all the X-Men kick ass at their highest level yet. We get action from just about all the heroes here, as they use their powers in unison, causing for some of the most uniquely timed stunts and effects. The best example of this would be the space rescue scene where Quicksilver and Nightcrawler use their speed and teleportation to pretty much board the ship of the astronauts and safely transport them one by one into the X-Jet. And I remember that entire scene was just so breathtaking, and I was at the edge of my seat for the whole time and just thinking like, damn man, this is just an impressive scene, and they really pulled it off. We see a lot of other very unique collab attacks and stunts, particularly towards the end of the film, but it's just so much of it happening that it was hard for me to make it out and distinguish between who was doing it, as there were like 4 or 5 characters in action at the same point. But for the most part, I really enjoyed seeing it and thought it all came together very well. This film also had a much darker and deeper tone than Apocalypse, which, let's be honest, just felt a little weak when it came to the stakes. And you're very drawn to and invested in the story here, starting off with Jean Grey's background, and you pretty much remain that way throughout the entire film. And I remember just having my eyes fixed on the screen and watching the story unfold, which I think it did a really good job in executing. I also really enjoyed all the effects for the most part, and they all look very realistic and believable, especially with Magneto, as he pretty much just ripped apart doors and used the pieces as shards to just impale people, which I thought was very kick-ass and just awesome. Nightcrawler's teleportation was also pretty cool, which is one thing all these X-Men films seem to execute very well, with the loud poof followed by blue smoke as he jumps from point A to point B. And I gotta give a shout out to the mutant with dreads that, whenever he whipped his head back and forth, he could use each of the locks as a whip, which is something that we've never seen before. Another thing I liked about this film was the conflict between Charles and the others, who feel that he's pretty much being driven by this false sense of righteousness. He gets into it in this heated argument with Hank, which pretty much ends with Hank heading out and seeking counsel elsewhere, and even with Mystique over the whole Jean Grey thing. And she pretty much points out that he's not out in the field risking everything like everybody else, so like who the hell is he? And out of all the exchanges between the two of them, this was definitely the most personal. And of course there's this ongoing conflict with Magneto, where Magneto pretty much states that Charles is always sorry and that he always has a speech. And I really enjoyed this arc for Xavier in total, because it shows that even the greatest minds have lessons to learn. Now getting into the things I didn't like about the film, I'll start off with the main villain, played by Jessica Chastain. She wasn't the usual physically grueling and opposing villain, but she was more maniacal and plotting, which she actually played the part of very well. The problem is the fact that she was part of this organization that was just poorly written for this film, and I felt like they were all interesting characters, but the way they were defeated was just so anticlimactic and cheap, and it actually reminded us of a more recent film and the way they went out, but I'm also not going to spoil that here, but you'll understand once you see the film. Another thing I disliked was the lack of Quicksilver, which I was really expecting to see a lot of in this film, but I guarantee you pretty much everything you've seen of him in the trailers is just about all you're going to get, which is really sad because he's really become a favorite in this new franchise, and it seems like such a waste to, you know, just underuse him in what's supposed to be the final X-Men movie. I also thought Nightcrawler's call to action was pretty weak because, you know, if you see my reaction to the last trailer, you know that I was looking for him to be a lot more rugged and close to the X2 version of this film, but we get that, and it's just not well earned. You know what causing the action? There's a fucking soldier that dies right beside him, and a soldier that doesn't give like two shits about him is what causes him the action. I just thought it was so bland and just complete bullshit. Like I said at the beginning of my review, Sophie Turner as Jean Grey was a little bit two-dimensional, as she spent a great deal of the film just sort of in distress and crying, but that wasn't that big of a deal, and also the film does slow down in the middle, but none of that was as significant as the things that I just previously mentioned. But all in all, guys, I mostly enjoyed Dark Phoenix and was fairly entertained. It's not the best or the worst, so I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5 snake eggs. I highly recommend it for fans of this new franchise and average moviegoers alike. So have you seen Dark Phoenix yet? What'd you think? Comment down below. I hope you guys enjoyed my review and found it insightful. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you tap that bell for notifications. There's also links to my social media posted down in the description below. And as always, Nerdy Python is out of here.